Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we're diving into a topic that's as complex as it is disturbing, the dark side of spiritual gurus, and specifically, whether Deepak Chopra was complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. We have an incredible panel lined up to tackle this question from various angles. Joining me are sage Arun Kapoor, whose work on nonviolent philosophy and peace activism gives him a unique perspective on the intersection of spirituality and ethics. Sasha, Volkov, a true crime expert with investigative journalism under her belt, who can speak to the psychology behind these power dynamics. Valentina Moreau, who studied celebrity culture and relationships, offering insight into why some figures might be drawn to predators like Epstein, and Madame Lucille Beauregard, whose dramatic storytelling skills will help us unpack the haunting aspects of this narrative. Over the next hour, we'll explore the disturbing texts between Chopra and Epstein, the implications of Chopra's past statements on sexual abuse, and what consequences, if any, should be faced by those in positions of power who enable or turn a blind eye to such crimes. Let's get into it.
If I may offer a perspective, the allegations against Deepak Chopra are deeply troubling. The intersection of power, wealth, and spirituality can be particularly toxic when it intersects with abuse. In our tradition, we speak of ahimsa or nonviolence as a fundamental principle. Perhaps, one could argue that Chopra's actions demonstrate a failure to uphold this principle. As Gandhi said, the means are the ends in miniature. If the end is peace and love, then the means must also reflect those values. I find it disturbing that there were texts suggesting Chopra knew about underage girls and yet chose to associate with Epstein nonetheless. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us about dharma or righteous living. It's concerning that Chopra's actions may not align with this dharma.
Sage Arun Kapoor's reference to specific allegations against Deepak Chopra was appreciated, but let's ensure we focus on verifiable evidence.
The allegations against Deepak Chopra are quite disturbing, especially given his influential position as a spiritual guru. The texts between Chopra and Epstein do suggest a level of familiarity and comfort that raises red flags. What's concerning is not just the association with a known predator like Epstein, but also Chopra's past statements on sexual abuse, which have downplayed its severity. This pattern of behavior indicates a larger issue within certain spiritual or self-help communities where power dynamics can be exploited. If these messages show Chopra was aware of Epstein's activities and still chose to engage with him, that could imply complicity. The intersection of spirituality, wealth, and power here demands scrutiny, particularly when it involves minors. I think it's crucial we examine how figures like Chopra navigate these complex relationships and the impact on their followers.
As we delve into this sensitive topic, remember that our goal is to explore the complexities and implications rather than making unfounded accusations.
Let's be clear. The texts between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein are downright disturbing. The fact that Chopra allegedly told Epstein to bring your girls on trips implies a level of awareness about Epstein's illicit activities that's hard to ignore. What's even more troubling is Chopra's history of downplaying sexual abuse, which raises questions about his complicity, or at least his willingness to turn a blind eye. It's not just about Chopra. This gets to the broader issue of how celebrities and gurus are drawn to individuals like Epstein, who wield power and influence. The intersection of wealth, sex, and spirituality here is deeply problematic. If Chopra had any genuine concern for the well-being of these young women, he would have distanced himself from Epstein long ago. The question now is, should there be consequences for enabling or turning a blind eye to such abuse?
Sasha Volkov, while your points are well taken, let's ensure we focus on verifiable evidence.
Well, sugar, I declare the evidence against Deepak Chopra is downright disturbing. Them texts with Epstein, suggestin' he knew about them underage girls, it's a mighty hard pill to swallow. Now, you won't believe this, but I've seen my fair share of unsavory characters in Savannah's high society, and there's something peculiar about these gurus and their entourage. It's like they think themselves above the law, or perhaps they just get caught up in that vortex of power and wealth. Bless your heart, Chopra's statements minimizing sexual abuse? That's a page straight out of the playbook of manipulators. Elijah, my resident ghost, would agree with me, there's no excuse for covering up such heinous acts. The question remains, should Chopra face consequences? I say, absolutely. In this house, we don't shelter predators, we expose them for what they are.
The exchange between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein raises grave concerns about Chopra's judgment and potential complicity. What's striking is how Chopra's history of downplaying sexual abuse allegations seems to intersect with his relationship with a notorious predator like Epstein. The question now is whether Chopra should face consequences for enabling or turning a blind eye to Epstein's crimes, particularly given the texts that suggest he was aware of Epstein's illicit activities. As we explore this topic further, it's crucial to examine how power, wealth, and spirituality can create an ecosystem where abuse thrives. We'll delve deeper into these dynamics in our next round, so stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussion. If you're finding this conversation as unsettling as I am, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.
I'd like to push back on the notion that Deepak Chopra's actions can be dismissed as merely ill-advised or a lapse in judgment. The texts revealing his awareness of Epstein's underage girls and his casual invitation for Epstein to bring them on trips suggest a level of comfort and familiarity that's deeply troubling. When coupled with his history of downplaying sexual abuse, it paints a picture of a guru who's more concerned with maintaining his status and connections than with protecting vulnerable individuals. The intersection of power, wealth, and spirituality here creates a toxic dynamic that enables predators like Epstein. It's imperative we hold influential figures accountable for their actions. If Chopra was aware of Epstein's crimes and chose to associate with him anyway, consequences are not only warranted but necessary to prevent further harm. Glowing star.
As I reflect on this conversation, I'm reminded of the Bhagavad Gita's teaching that one reaps what one sows. The allegations against Deepak Chopra are troubling, and if true, his actions demonstrate a grave lapse in judgment and empathy. Perhaps we must consider why spiritual leaders, who advocate for self-purification and compassion, sometimes succumb to the allure of power and wealth. I find it disturbing that Chopra seemed comfortable enough with Epstein's predatory nature to suggest bringing your girls on trips. This episode highlights a dark intersection of spirituality, power, and exploitation. If I may offer a perspective, spiritual leaders must be held accountable for their actions. Consequences are necessary to restore trust and integrity. As we conclude, let's acknowledge the complexity of this issue and the need for nuanced discussions that balance accountability with compassion.
As an expert in true crime and criminal psychology, I find the connection between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein deeply troubling. The texts revealing Chopra's awareness of Epstein's underage girls raise significant concerns about his complicity. What's more disturbing is Chopra's history of downplaying sexual abuse, which suggests a larger issue with accountability in the spiritual community. It's no secret that powerful figures like Epstein often use their influence to exploit vulnerable individuals. I believe Chopra should face consequences for enabling this predator. The intersection of power, wealth, and spirituality can create a toxic environment where exploitation thrives. We must hold influential figures accountable when they abuse their power or facilitate abuse. Ultimately, we need to scrutinize the dynamics between gurus like Chopra and those with questionable character, ensuring that our pursuit of spiritual growth doesn't compromise our moral integrity.
Let's be clear, the texts between Deepak Chopra and Jeffrey Epstein are downright disturbing. The fact that Chopra allegedly told Epstein to bring your girls on trips implies a level of awareness about Epstein's predatory behavior that's hard to ignore. What's even more troubling is Chopra's history of making light of sexual abuse, which only adds fuel to the fire. It's not about being spiritual or enlightened, it's about accountability for enabling and facilitating abuse. The intersection of power, wealth, and spirituality here is toxic. Chopra should face consequences for his relationship with a known predator like Epstein. At some point, we have to stop idolizing gurus and start holding them accountable for their actions. The vulnerable deserve nothing less. What's truly concerning is how celebrities and gurus are drawn to bad boys like Epstein. It's a pattern that needs to be broken.
Well, sugar, I declare the evidence against Deepak Chopra is as damning as a midnight storm cloud over my family's plantation. Them texts with Epstein? Lord have mercy, they imply a level of familiarity that's just distressing. Now, you won't believe this, but it seems Chopra's history of downplaying sexual abuse only adds fuel to the fire. Bless his heart, he's got some explainin' to do. The question is, should he face consequences for his association with that monster? In my experience, power and spirituality can be a toxic mix, especially when wealth and influence are involved. Elijah, my resident ghost, would agree, in this house, we've seen our fair share of dark secrets. I think Chopra's relationship with Epstein demands scrutiny. We must consider the implications of their connection on the spiritual community.
As we wrap up this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, it's clear that the conversation around Deepak Chopra's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein has left more questions than answers. The texts revealing Chopra's disturbingly casual mention of your girls on trips to Epstein raise a troubling specter of complicity. What's equally unsettling is Chopra's history of downplaying sexual abuse, which many see as a dangerous minimization of the gravity of these crimes. Sage Arun Kapoor takes the top score for their incisive analysis of how figures like Chopra often leverage their spiritual authority to sidestep accountability. Their points on the toxic intersection of power, wealth, and spirituality hit hard, particularly in light of Epstein's abuse. To our panelists, thank you for delving into this uncomfortable but necessary discussion. And to our audience, if you're as invested in unpacking these complex issues as we are, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We've got more tough conversations coming your way. Until next time, keep questioning, stay informed, and demand more from those who claim to lead.